the Stony so we could see the boat. And every little, it was like a rally driver, was hammering it to try and see if we could see him, like. And these wee country roads and handbrake turns, that's an exaggeration, but anyway. But his wife, like, she matched me. She had a faster car for a start, so, but yeah, she just was never off my tail. And I'm looking in the rear view mirror and I could see the daughter on the phone, so they were relaying everything back to him. So sometimes it was fun. I mean, you get a wee tip off and then you're having to try and cover your ass so you're not spotted, because I always had folk watching. So it was just a cat and mouse game. And if you caught them, yes, good. That was it. You'd won. Then you had to deal with whoever the skipper was and crew when you did catch them. Some guys just had their hands up and go, all right, there's my log sheet, my hand was on it. Other guys would go nuts. Probably had enough of me yakking. He says, as he's trying to think of another story. There's plenty, believe me. It's just stories that you could actually tell. During I started the job in Shetland, and I mean, it was at the height of the pelagic Klondike times, like masses of Russian factory ships would arrive in the harbour of Lerwick. At one point we had just over 100, that was the most we'd ever had. And I mean, they were anchored, a couple hundred yards from the office to, I think the harbour limits were 4 or 5 miles, so they could have been 4 or 5 miles out to sea. And the seas around Shetland are a pretty inhospitable place at the best of times. And our method of getting out to see a Klondiker, a Russian skipper, was by a little rib. Well, no little, somewhere a decent size, and usually single outboard. They did this crowd that was contracted to us. They did hit a twin engine, twin outboard. It was a beast, like, you know. I mean, when they first got it, it was so powerful, it was lifting the nose right up, and it was in danger of flipping it backwards. So they had the centre console, they found out after a few runs, had to come out of commission. centre console that you sat on, the guy driving it and you as a passenger, that I had to get shifted forward. I think probably more ballast in the bows, like, but yeah, it was a powerful thing. But still, in a in a storm, after a storm, when the seas were still big swell, and for 10 to 20 feet swell. It wasn't nice bouncing out off the top of the waves on a day like that. Yeah, and of course when you got out there, to get to the captain's cabin, you had to make your way along the main decks and through the innards of the accommodation area of the thingy. And of course the captain's usually in the wheelhouse, and that's right at the top. I mean, some of these ships were very, very big, like, so it was a good climb. Right, sorry, I'm just we're now entering the village of Friokheim. Aye, so you had to, to get to the skipper was an adventure in itself. I mean, you were usually climbing up the stern ramp on a homemade rope ladder. And then some of these ships had dogs on it. Usually, well, the Danes I came across, it was always Alsatians. Like, kind of ferociously, like they were going to have you. They were tied up usually, but scary dogs. And then you'd get to the captain's cabin, and the fun would begin. So you'd introduce yourself. You were usually there to issue him with a license, or to revoke his license because he was leaving. That was... I don't know what the hell is going on here. Yeah, so you would tell them what you were there for. Most of them spoke a wee bit English. Some of them were good. I started taking Russian. I was studying Russian evening classes in Bray, where I stayed, and I I'll learn a bit of Russian. I mean, that breaks the ice, and I'll maybe never be fluent. I wish I was. I just love the Russian language. I could listen to it even though I don't understand it. I could just sit and listen to them speaking. Anyway, I learned my wee introductions, stuff like that. So I would get in and try out my Russian on a captain in his ships, and because he must have thought, well, this guy could speak Russian, and he'd say something in Russian to me in reply, and I would go, shrug my shoulders. I'm sorry, I didn't understand. I'm learning Russian. And there's one skipper started giving me Russian language lessons in the whalehouse, like. Of course, which I didn't understand. He was getting too fast, but he was picking up things and going, like maybe pick up a pen. This, maybe pick up something else, and spasibo. Anyway, a lot of the times, especially when they arrived, these Russian ships arrived, they were looking to get licensed so they could take either herring or mackerel at the time. So they were nice to you, and well, they were usually nice anyway. And it would be, would you like a coffee? And if it was a winter's day during the mackerel season, and you were frozen by the time you got there, I mean, that was a good idea. So you go, yeah, thank you. So they get the coffee on, and it was like, they'd take a coffee jug, and they'd pour about half a jar of Nescafe in, or whatever they had. It was just like, this is a bit too strong, and nah. But you drank it anyway. Because you quickly learned, depending on how you were feeling at the time, you quickly learned after the coffee came the vodka. Because you were sitting there chatting, you'd finish your coffee, and next thing he's offering you vodka. And you're going to yourself, I wonder if it real Russian vodka, no Smirnoff shit, real Russian vodka, I wonder what that tastes like. So, can you get aye? And of course, every Russian that I know, either skipper anyway, captains, the vodka's kept in the freezer, so when it doesn't freeze, obviously it's just like a kind of thicker liquid. But so into the freezer, here comes the bottle and wee shot glasses, pours it out, and the customary said a cheers, it's Nostrovia. So then they knock it back in a winner, so you sort of go, well, I'll just knock it back in a winner as well. So boom, back it goes. And I think I've told this story before, so I'm not going to tell it again, but on one occasion I ended up in an absolute mess. After about 3.5 bottles of vodka, between three of us, no, 4 of us. There was the skipper, the captain, this guy had the technologue, the second in command, who was gay. I've told the story before, but never mind. Who was gay. So they 3 and me, and like my boss that was with me at the time, no, he was no. No. And he refused every drink, and as a matter of fact, they poured him a drink every time, and he just slid it across the table to me. So I was drinking his and mine, double the quota, and like I say, I ended up in a hell of a mess. As in, very drunk. But that was the only time. There was other times, I would say, because I knew guys that would, after they finished, well, they would get home, just say they were on a day shift, because when the Russians were there, we worked day shift, back shift, night shift. So after, especially if you're on a day shift, so this particular guy would finish, go home, get his tea, back down the harbour, get the sea taxis who took us out to the Russians. I mean, he was all dressed up, and he'd go out and party on these Klondikers. Well, I knew a couple of guys that did that, actually. But, yeah, so some guys took it a bit too far. I mean, I had a couple of friends, Russian guys, who supplied me with, I mean, black bin bags full of fags, 200 cartons of fags. We were getting them for, at the time, they were charging, well, Joe Public, they were charging them £5 for a carton, like 200 fags. And these things, they're called Hollywood was the brand, and they were like Benson Hedges, very mild, they good smoke, in the soft packets. But this guy, because he was a fishery officer, etc., I mean, he wasn't a captain, he wasn't the officers or anything, he was just like a decky, and he worked on the thingy. And he said, oh, for you, £3.50. And he what, £3.50 for 200 fags? How much have you got? How much do you need? Well, because they're a black bag, fill that up like, and yeah, so they were good. I mean, they could get you as much vodka as you wanted. What they couldn't get you was brandy. I think that was the reserve of the captains. And believe me, I've had Russian brandy on these ships, and it's nectar, like, it's beautiful. But I couldn't get ahead of a bottle of it. And I had bought quite a few bottles. I mean, I wasn't an alky or anything like that, but just a hay and reserve sort of thing. I mean, this brandy was so good, but I could never get it. You could get guns, like real guns. Obviously, you didn't buy guns. Full sets of ping golf clubs in the bag, brand new, were 200 quid at the time. But you had to catch these Russians before they came to Shetland. Most of them had been in Canada for whatever fishing season, mackerel or herring. Well, I don't know what they were taking in Canada, but they'd come from Canada straight across to Shetland, and of course they'd picked up all these. Well, I don't know how it was so cheap. I can't remember what a full set of ping clubs and bag, etc. were in the shop. I mean, it was a lot of money at the time. But yeah, you could get, let's say, you could get anything. As we pass quickly through St Vincent's. Yeah, there was one guy who was once, and he said, I'm needing Russian dolls, the Matushkas, they get weird and weird inside, for folk when I get back home. He was up in detached duty in Shetland. He became like one of the big bosses eventually. By the time he was a senior fishery officer. And I am needing maybe some vodka and the Russian hats for my wife, like the big furry jobs like the Russian women wear. I went, right, I've got a guy. I says, you'll be able to get you anything you want. So we headed out to the Klondike that he was on. We were out there anyway, we just stopped off at his, and of course went to his cabin, and of course this guy goes, or Jimmy said his name there. This guy said, yeah, could I get blah blah blah, blah, I'm needing this, and oh, no, so he disappears, and of course as we're sitting there, all these guys are poking their head in the door and offering us, because they knew we were there to buy stuff, and they had like brand new engineering tools that would probably cost a lot of money, and wanting pennies for them, relatively speaking. And so he got everything he wanted, and he was happy. And then this final guy came in with his swag. You want to buy? You would buy. So he had various things, and it was like, no. And he had this like shoulder holster, kind of like you wear like, under your clothes sort of thing. And the guy, the fishing officer that was with, goes, oh, jokingly, do you have the gun as well? Da, you want gun? No, fuck's sake. No, we didn't want a gun, like. But, yeah. So that's it. They all lived happily ever after. The end. Let's be back.